Alright, hi everybody. This is the first of what will be generally weekly review videos that cover the material from the previous week. I have 3 classes. I'm doing all classes in one video, so there may be times where I review something and you're like, we haven't gotten to that. Well, that's because one class might be slightly ahead of another, and we'll get to that material next week, or the next class period probably. What I'm going to do here is just hit a couple of the highlights, make some comments about things that maybe didn't get covered the way I wanted them to, or I want to reinforce, things like that. The very first thing I want to do with this is to go over paper formatting. I didn't take off for paper formatting on this particular homework assignment, but I think some may benefit from a demonstration. So I am going to be super high tech, and I'm going to swing this webcam around and show you my Microsoft Word document and how you can format it correctly. Okay, so what I have on the screen will be what Microsoft Word defaults to, and what you'll see are some of my notes for this this video. Anyway, here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, pardon the shaking. So this is what it defaults to, alright? Microsoft Office, or Microsoft Word. If you look up here, if we get to focus, it defaults to Calibri font 11. And then the other very important place for you to go is this paragraph spacing area. You'll click down, you'll see that it defaults to 1.15, which means between the space isn't single line spacing, it's 1.15 line spacing. You'll see here's double line spacing. So the other thing that it defaults to is it adds a space after the paragraph. Okay? So here's what you'll want to do. When I say remove that space after each paragraph, clicking here is what I want you to do. So here's what you can do to make sure that your paper is properly formatted. I'm going to highlight all this. Right now it's formatted exactly as the Word document defaults to. I'm going to go up here, select Times New Roman, which is the font I want you to use, and change it to 12-point font. Alright, with everything still highlighted, go to this paragraph button, click down here, paragraph and line spacing. I'm going to change it to double line spacing, and then I'm going to click on it again and remove the space after paragraph. Now watch what happens when I remove the space after paragraph. You see that? See how it becomes, everything is double spaced all the way through, and when you go down to a different paragraph line you don't have a double space and then one extra space. That's what I want you to do, and that's what it should look like. If you look over yonder, here's a paper that I wrote. This is generally the way I want you to format your papers. This is a title. Depending on the paper, you may or may not want to have a title. I don't really care that much. I don't care about formatting in terms of, you know, having the name, course number, date, whatever. All you need to do is put your name up here, have the whole thing double spaced through, 1-inch margins, and just start going. So you see here I have my name, I have a title. Your paper may not need a title. And then I just start talking. There it is, my introduction. It goes down. See, everything's double spaced. A new paragraph right here. You notice it's still double spaced in between the end of the first paragraph and the second paragraph. If I had that add space after paragraph, you see how that changes. There's extra white space, and it would make 3 spaces in between each paragraph instead of just double spaced, or 2 total spaces. Down here are footnotes. This is I want you to use this Chicago style of citation, which involves footnotes and then a works cited page. We'll get into that a little later, but the instruction sheet is on Moodle. Okay? And there's, I don't know, that paper. If you're quoting a large amount of text, block quotes, like that. So yeah, that's how you format. You do those steps. Times New Roman, font 12, right here, double space, and you want to make sure this says add space after paragraph. If it says remove space after paragraph, click it so that it will remove the space after paragraph. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Well, I should keep that up so I know what I'm looking at. Hey, everybody's looking at mine. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I want to clarify the graph and a couple of terms on the graph. The political compass thing that we did, a lot of people talked about being libertarian. And I guess, I guess I'm a libertarian. On this graph, when we're talking about libertarian, we're talking about the term libertarian in a social freedom sense. So if you are a libertarian on that graph, that means you believe in more social freedoms, you believe in questioning authority, or you have more distrust of authority, you think that there should be less government involvement in people's personal lives, that people should have a wider range of freedoms to do what they want to do in their personal life with their personal business. All right. That is not at all the same thing as a libertarian in the American political sense, as in the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is very, very different. If you ended up being a libertarian on this graph, most likely you're not a member of the Libertarian Party in American politics. The Libertarian Party is a party that is to the right of the Republicans on economic issues. They are pure free market capitalists. Their primary focus in general is on the freedom for a person to do with their property, with their labor, make contracts as they see fit. So a libertarian would be very much against any government regulation of the economy. There are a number of libertarians that are in favor of some government regulation on the social side of things: abortion, gay marriage, drugs, police, things like that. In general, though, the Libertarian Party has more libertarian social values, has more liberal social values than the Republican Party. But it can be a little more iffy there. A number of the high-profile libertarians, some of them have been very much the, legalization of various drugs, pro-gay marriage, pro-abortion. However, we also have a number of libertarians that are against gay marriage and against abortion, those social liberal values we would expect with somebody who holds a libertarian position in the sense that it exists on the political compass. Okay? If you scored on the libertarian side of things on the political compass, don't then believe you're a member of the Libertarian Party. If you scored, here, I'll show this. If you scored roughly in this area with Ron Paul and Gary Johnson, you can be a member of the Libertarian Party right here. Notice how far to the right they are. Now, if you scored down here, these are members of the Green Party, communist, socialist, social anarchist, kind of. So keep that in mind. If you scored in this range, you're more within the American political spectrum, or at the very least your beliefs in abstract are. Now, the important thing with why did Obama, Romney score all the way up in this area is because people's actions are sometimes different than what they say their beliefs are. So on this test, we get to say what we believe in a generic sort of sense. However, if we were to try and put those beliefs in practice, we may end up acting a little further in this direction than what we say our beliefs are, which are generally in this area. Alright? But so you can't just look at where you are authoritarian to libertarian. This is a social scale. Also look at where you are on the economic scale. If you're on the libertarian side of the graph, but on the right hand side of it, you can be a libertarian in the Libertarian Party sense. If you're over here, you're more democratic socialist. You probably would like Sweden and Norway a lot. Alright? Okay. And oops. So that is that. Showed formatting. Okay, I'm going to put the PowerPoint online. On a lot of the PowerPoints, I will put in information that we might not have gotten to. That information will still be useful. So on the PowerPoint here, we didn't get into a lot of the specifics as to what maybe some Democrats, Republicans believe in terms of specific policy positions. We got into a little bit of some of their dividing lines in different classes. Still read on the PowerPoint those and pay attention to that. There'll be things that we talk about later in class, but it'll help get you prepared for that. So keep that in mind. On the PowerPoints also, there are the where'd I put it? Okay, on the landscape slide, what I called in class the fault lines of American politics, or the dividing lines, the demographic differences between the parties and liberals and conservatives. So we find that liberals are generally in urban areas, whereas conservatives are generally in rural areas. We see the Northeast, West, and Northern Midwest coalition against the South and Heartland. A lot of that can be seen in the election maps that I put on there. They're the state maps, and then there are the county maps about how each state voted county by county. So that's something important to remember to look at. And okay, so one of the big concepts I wanted you to come away with is this difference between bias and partisanship. Bias, again, is your worldview. Okay, it's the paradigm is another fancy word for it. Paradigm in which you operate. So when you have information in the world, you will interpret it through this worldview, okay? And you'll make sense of the world through your bias. Everybody has a bias. Everybody must have a bias. It's just the way it is, because everybody needs to have that worldview. You can't be a blank slate in which information just sticks to you. You have to have some way to engage with that information, and that's what a bias does for us, at least in the way we're using it in this class. Partisanship is rooting for a team, having a political party, and supporting that party. If you're being partisan, you are supporting one party against another party, regardless perhaps of your own personal beliefs or the facts, or you could just be trying to support your party just to make the other party look bad. We had a little bit of this with the 2008 election in a very strange turn of events, or strange public statements. You had meetings with John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, Eric Cantor, a number of congressional party leaders who met together with journalists in discussion as to their strategy moving forward, and actually said, like in public at press conference, which is really odd, that their goal was going to be to make sure Obama did not get any legislative victories. Obama ran on a platform of nonpartisanship, that we weren't a red America or a blue America, but we were the United States of America. Because he ran on that platform, because he promised to bring civility and bipartisanship and listening to different sides to Washington, D.C., they were explicitly not going to do that. And again, amazingly, they said that in public for other people to hear, and it wasn't even like that they were ashamed of it. Lots of the conservative talk show hosts proclaimed it very proudly. I remember listening to Rush Limbaugh the day after, or 2 days after the election, saying that he didn't want the Republicans to give Obama anything at all, and that he hoped Obama failed as a president. He did say, I feel sad saying this as an American, but I hope Obama is a terrible president, and I hope he fails as a president, because I guess that means people realize Democrats are bad and Republicans should get elected, even though failing as president would mean bad things for the country. But that would be partisanship. And remember, having a bias does not necessarily mean having your own facts. It just means having your own worldview. Let's see. How do I want to tie that in? Okay. Here's an example of how bias can work, and how I want you, when you're thinking about what you believe, figure out why you believe it, and then when you think about what you believe and why, how you can make those beliefs, those values, manifest in policy positions that get you to where you want to go. What policy positions will achieve your goals, and what are you trading off in terms of your bias versus pragmatic action? Okay, so here's one example. We know that abortion is something that about 25% of Americans oppose altogether. Okay? Since, for the past 40 years, the support for abortion has not changed. At least 75% of Americans support abortion or abortion rights, or pro-choice in some degree. At least 75% of our some degree since Roe v. Wade. 25% of Americans oppose abortion in every single situation. Even things like rape and incest, which is where some people who oppose abortion will make exceptions for in those cases. So we want to make it so that people are not getting abortions. How do we do this? So your bias says, when it gets built up, it says, I don't support abortions. What policies can we then enact to make sure people are not getting abortions? Making abortions illegal has not done anything to prevent abortions, right? The only thing it does do is it makes abortions less safe, and it makes a lot of women die trying to seek abortions that are not properly performed by medical personnel in a legal, regulated environment. Making it illegal does not significantly reduce the number of abortions. So again, if you oppose abortion, how do you achieve the goal of getting rid of abortions? This is where, while you may have a bias and you may have a partisanship, you're not entitled to your own facts. The facts are very clear. The facts are very clear on this. Planned Parenthood is the #1 organization in this country that has prevented the most abortions overall, if that sentence makes sense. Planned Parenthood, through their birth control, sex education, providing birth control to men and women through sex education, through providing reproductive health information to women, have prevent right around 1 million abortions every single year. That's a lot, right? There are like 1.8 million abortions every year, 2 million abortions every year. So they prevent about 33%. Now, if your goal is to eliminate abortion, or to reduce it to make it the lowest level possible, for example, we make murder illegal, but just making it illegal doesn't mean that people aren't murdering each other, right? We want to reduce abortion to its lowest level possible. The facts are very clear. What you do is you make sure women have access to free birth control, make sure they have access to reproductive health information and reproductive health care. You make sure that children in schools have access to age-appropriate sex education, starting very young. Age-appropriate sex education in elementary school is things like bad touching. It teaches children how to not, or how to identify and help protect them against sexual predators. And in high school, sex education is about both how to use condoms, what the reproductive cycle is like, how babies are made, and also includes more of that very important how to prevent sexual predators, rape and stuff when you get into the high school area. Here's the thing though, we find people who are pro-life don't like Planned Parenthood that much. And those that want to make abortion illegal and to reduce the number of abortions because they oppose a person's ability to choose to have an abortion don't actually support programs and policies that are proven to reduce the number of abortions, and instead support and pursue policies that are proven to increase the number of abortions. So, you gotta ask, why is that? And how do our values, biases play into making those decisions? What we find generally is that people who oppose abortion also have this sexual moral purity value system going on, so that any acceptance of any acceptance of any type of sexual encounter outside of a man and a woman in marriage is wrong. And anything that even seems to support or lend any type of social acceptance to that is considered to be wrong. Wrong even to the point where it seems to be more justifiable to allow more abortions to happen than to make it seem slightly socially acceptable to have sex outside of marriage. Alright, so you see a couple different values there, and this opposing abortion because abortion is murder, but also this value of this, sexual moral purity, this belief of this is the way things need to be in terms of in sexual relationships and the acts people should engage in, how they do their thing in the bedroom, if they're allowed to or should be allowed to use birth control, how they should be allowed to do it. There's some really weird things out there. Anyway, we see that because the anti-abortion belief is tied with the sexual purity idea, those values end up conflicting some or creating this situation where people who oppose abortion end up moving towards policy positions that don't decrease or eliminate abortions, because they find that the moral value of stating that abortion is wrong, period, altogether, wanting no social acceptance for it at all, is more important than getting rid of abortions or trying to make abortion as minimal of a thing as possible. All right, and that's a way that that's something that you'll have to wrestle with in your public policy paper and in politics in general. You have certain values. To what extent are you willing to sacrifice or step back from idealistic values and goals to pragmatic values and goals? So abortion, I think, is a really good example of that. The idealistic part of people that are pro-life says that we need to take a strong stand that says this is wrong, that killing babies is wrong, and we won't allow it. However, there's the pragmatic part of it of how do you achieve the goal of making sure babies are not killed when they're in utero. The goal of proclaiming moral purity, sexual purity, and lessening abortion, they're antithetical to each other. If you want to reduce abortion, like I said, you have to do things like make birth control very much readily available, which are things that people who are pro-life generally don't want to make available. So then, how do you make your stand? What values, how do your values interact with each other to create the policy position that achieves the goal that you most want to achieve? If you're pro-life, do you want to make the statement of what's moral sexually and sexual purity and what was back in the day anti-obscenity laws? Do you want those to be the most important things that you focus on? Or do you want to step back from the statement that abortion is wrong and we have a zero tolerance policy for it, and that sex outside of marriage is wrong and we have a zero tolerance policy for it, and achieve and actually try and make abortions less, minimize the number of abortions carried out? The facts say you can't have both. Still perfectly fine, whichever way you end up going with that. That's just how your values, how you make sense of your values, what decision you come to, but make sure that you recognize how the values and the decisions you come to interact with the realities of things. All right. And that was basically it. What I want to go over. One more thing. Quizzes. This past quiz was on Friday. In the future, I think I'll make quizzes due on Sunday to give people just a little bit extra time. And the quizzes, you'll have one shot to do them as opposed to unlimited chances to do them. And the quizzes in general will be on the readings, though there are some cases where I give material, such as on the social contract, which is not in the readings, which is through the lecture. I give a more thorough lecture on here also. But you'll have to be a lecturer to get that information. Anyway, so have a good weekend. Well, the weekend's over. Have a good Monday if you happen to jump right on this tonight. Bye.